Interviews with Haunting Gurus. I want to thank Johnny Thunder, who was gracious enough to keep the last bar on the left open after hours so I could kick back in the corner booth with the infamous Scream team. We've got Jeff Doan, Ed Gannon,
Hello.
Revenant, and that podcasting hack Baker. Hey, you guys are gonna regale us with some of your tales of your 2019 haunt season, and it's kind of cool. Like, not only was I just being lazy by not wanting to kind of scour around and line up an interview, but we haven't done a group call like this. Yeah, easy for me to say. I haven't done a group call like this in a while. I don't know if it was. The last time we did it was either like the first or second or the third time that we closed the show. I kind of lost track after all the closings. But anyway, good to have you guys here. It's always a pleasure, as they say.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, me too.
All right, guys.
Nice to be there with everybody.
Hey, I thought, why don't we start off with the noob to the team, the new edition in 2019. Wait, did you join in 2018 or was it 2019? It was 2019, right?
Was it?
Jeff, how long you been with us?
Yeah,
For like
it
6
was
months?
2019.
2019?
I think so. I've done some stuff in the past with you guys, just on and off, like drinking at Transworld and whatnot. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the usual. But yeah, no, I think I've actually survived 2019 with you guys. So
Yeah,
that's great.
I think
You
it
poor
was that JT said he was hanging out with you, and you had expressed some interest in taking over the news segment or something at that time.
And I was very interested in him taking over the news segment.
Well, considering you did one like once a year, maybe, it was.
I'm not plugged into the industry. I'm just this guy who likes Halloween and everything. Jeff is somebody who's actually part of the business and everything, so he's the logical person to cover the news because I don't know what the news is.
But you're a cool guy.
Yeah, it's
Well,
funny.
that goes without saying.
Yeah, after your first segment, it's funny. I got a feedback from one person who's just purely a home haunter, completely unplugged from the pro side of things, and they were like, "Well, I found you guys because I found our Make and Take group because I was listening, and you guys used to do do all the updates on the Make and Takes and the home haunter groups," and I'm like, and I said, okay, I get it. That's, you want more of that, but we also, and Jeff is doing more pro stuff, but we haven't done any of those updates in like 5 or 6 years. So what difference? So we weren't even doing those. So what difference does it make that the new person that we brought in, who is doing more industry-related news, we're at least getting news. Like, we weren't getting anything, and Revenue wasn't doing the segment more than once a year. So the fact that he actually stepped up and told me that he wanted to do it and was willing to take it on, and Revenant couldn't have been happier to get rid of it. What am I going to do? You're like,
I mean, the thing is I think that's the beauty of our industry, is it's so eclectic. They at this point now, having the escape rooms, the haunted houses, the home haunters, now you're throwing the Christmas people in the mix. Eventually, it's just going to be experiential entertainment, and it's just going to be a bunch of weirdos who like to make experiences for people to participate in, and that's all that we're going to become. So, I mean, the more information we could put out there for anybody and everybody, the better. So, absolutely, I can definitely toss out some fun home haunt stuff as well every now and then.
Well, if you come across anything, but once again, it's harder to find some of that information because. Once again, I'm not even sure where you dig for it anymore. I don't know who's on Halloween forum or Haunt forum, or almost everybody's just on Facebook into different groups, and they've all started their own groups, and some groups are small and some are big. Some are too big because you can't really follow a thread of anything because it's gone in 2 seconds. And unless you want to scroll for days to find stuff, it's kind of hard to do that. Yeah, so it's like once
Do you
again,
remember the massive page of Halloween Project's website back in the day?
Oh yeah.
which one, the monster
Yeah.
list or the
Yes.
Halloween L1 site.
now?
Yes, the monster list. That was amazing.
I don't even know if that's still around.
It is. I found it.
Oh, is it
the other
really?
day, actually, yeah.
It's hilarious.
I was working on a project for the escape rooms. I was working on hacking one of those Christmas trees to make it talk. And I'm like, wow, this is really outdated stuff. Let me go on the monster page of Halloween projects. I'm sure it'll be on there, and it was. So that was always the go-to.
It's funny. One of the
That's
guys
funny.
who used to do a prop segment on the show a long time ago said, "Yeah, it's great. It's filled with stuff that can get you killed. It's filled with a lot of information that probably will, cause you to lose a phalange or two or kill somebody. But
Oh yeah, you had all the door closer pneumatics and
Yeah.
making pneumatics
PVC
from
pneumatic
PVC
cylinders, stuff that can turn into like deadly shrapnel at the blink of an eye.
fragment grenades and whatnot.
just keep the PSI low, you'll be fine. But I find the Haunters Hangout on Facebook is actually pretty good. And if you like a comment or something you want to follow, just make a comment on it, and then you can follow it easier. Because I found the same thing. You scroll through a million stuff, but they're pretty good on point with that one. And the other cool thing about the Home Haunter thing is that if they're coming into this for the first time, a lot of that old info is new to them and still pretty cool. So even our old shows are still doing the job. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, I wax nostalgic for all that because that's when I got into this, which was like 12, 13 years ago or whatever. Those were all really at the forefront. Those were where you would go,
right?
And it was like Halloween forum, haunt forum, Halloween L. I kind of missed the boat on that. It was like an email thread, and then they did start a forum, but it never really took off because everybody who was on that email list didn't really want to gravitate over to something else, and so I kind of came in at that point. And there was Haunt Project, I think, .com and the monsterlist.com, which were the two big ones. And then the guy who ran the Haunt Project, I think he passed away. They tried to keep it going. I think it just went by the wayside. And I don't think that thing's online any longer. But there was some cool stuff in there, and it was definitely a lot of those projects where I tried to make I tried to make a solenoid out of one of those washing machine solenoids. They're like, yeah, just go down to the dump and rip a solenoid out of a washing machine. I went down to the dump. The guy's like, no, we don't let you garbage pick down here. You can't take stuff out of this. Get out of here. He told me to beat it. I was like, oh, well, just give you a couple of bucks and let me go in there. No, get out of here, kid. I'm like, all right, whatever.
I never really became a part of the whole Halloween L and Monster List stuff because I guess I got started in this a little later than most. My introduction to the whole home haunt community and everything was actually Haunt Forum. And it was because I was actually looking for information on special effects work for little indie films and stuff like that, because I was into that a while back. And so I'm doing a web search and everything, and for whatever it was, I think I was looking for faux flames, to do a fake torch effect or something like that. And I got a link over to a Haunt Forum thread, and then saw what this was all about, and I was like, oh man, I'm all about that, because I used to do a lot of home haunts here in my hometown at the time, and that's how that all began.
Now, Ed, you were doing this stuff long before any of those things were around. What was around for information? It was just you had to talk to people. You actually had to physically meet people to get information.
Yeah, there was no internet per se. We had this is really show age. We had AOL. We had the AOL site where you could log on to AOL and then share stuff, but it was really hard to find things. So, actually had to read books. And when I was teaching myself special effects makeup, I had to get like Corson's makeup book. It's like $80 for a book. It's a college course book. And you could, at some of the shows like Chilla Theater in New York, because I'm from New Jersey, you could maybe talk to, Tom Savini or some of those guys that were, or Berman was just starting out, which is a special effects and makeup company, super nice. And back then they were just starting things like cold foam, which now is a pretty common process, and things like that. So they were eager to talk to you. But I mean, again, it wasn't like you walked in there with prior knowledge. So everyone was kind of starting out on you're either making the stuff from scratch or you're learning it. So you're either at the top of the scale or you're just coming into it. So it was a really disparaging kind of vast difference between what people were doing and what they wanted to do. And we all kind of figured it out, a lot of it. So if you weren't a MacGyver, you were kind of in trouble.
What else was out there that you could get your hands on, or that you might still have?
Actually, Thanksgiving we went by my mom's, and there's some stuff in the crawl space there we were going through, and there's Corson's makeup manual, which is still a great book. Tells you how to make molds and stuff. But I mean, they're talking about like using mortician's wax and different things like that all the way back there, and there was some engineering books and stuff. But again, nothing was really made for animatronics like we're doing. So I did find one on aircraft pneumatics and those kind of mechanisms with cables and the different pulleys, because obviously something like that fails, you're in trouble. So they're made really, really well, and I was able to glean some of those things. And at the time, Dick Smith was doing his thing, so there was always the how it's made kind of thing before they had that show. But it was always behind the scenes kind of things you get on the back of the video, because this is how long ago that was. Videotape, kids. It's a big, huge cassette, and so on some of those you could see some of the stuff. Like, I was always amazed the first time I saw someone do like a mechanical hand mechanism like they had in the Terminator, for underneath like a big claw, non-human size hand. I thought that was the most amazing thing ever. So that was probably one of the first mechs that I ever made. But things like that, you just kind of had to figure it out or find it, and it wasn't easy.
Yeah. Hey, before we get too far into the weeds, why don't we kind of go around the booth here, and I'll just kind of hit everybody with the same question, and we'll just kind of cover the basics. Jeff, overall, how was your season 2019?
The negative of being out in a cornfield in Colorado is being out in a cornfield in Colorado. It's probably one of the coldest seasons I've had on record. We had quite a few days we had to close for snow this year. And the worst part of all that is, as soon as your snow hits your corn cracks in half, the stalks do, because they're so weak and the snow's so heavy. So you go from having beautiful 12-foot walls of corn to where your opening weekend guest can't see anything. It's a beautiful maze, to the following week, guests literally being able to see it through it like it was like Swiss cheese. It was rough. We were able to find some really cool ways to work around it. We ended up making a giant laser swamp pretty much in a cornfield, which was one of the coolest projects I've ever pulled out my ass before. And a couple other things like that really tried to salvage the experience. But it was definitely a unique weather-related season, to say the least, this year.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it looked
in the corn.
Beautiful.
That's awesome.
Looked absolutely beautiful. Luckily for me, not only do I have that project, but I also have Frightmare, which is indoor-outdoor, that I'm a part of as well. And Frightmare was on its 37th season this year in Colorado. And the big thing that I got to do over there was to develop their add-on experiences, so the micro escape rooms. And that was by far one of the quickest builds I've ever had to do. I had to build an escape room in 24 hours. And so I had my team out there with me trying to get that done. And that was a huge experience. We learned very quickly, if you lock people to a wall, they love it. And that ends up being the main selling point on it. So we weren't really sure how it was going to go over. It went so well that the second week we were open, we actually had to build a second room just to accommodate the amount of guests who were wanting to play the first room. And then over at our escape room locations in Denver that we operate as well, we did a lot of really cool special giveaways with the haunted houses, as well as some cool promotional stuff with some of the films that were coming out, like Doctor Sleep and some of those. Zombieland 2, I guess, came out this year during the haunt season, so we got to do some cool promotions with those as well. So that was a good time.
So the micro escape room, I take it it's just a smaller version of a normal escape room?
It's a 5-minute experience. So what we did is we just did it as an add-on, similar to how people do the coffin ride or some of the games that we're now starting to see show up at Transworld as well in the Dark Zone. We decided that we would do micro escape rooms as an add-on ticket to where when they're purchasing online, it pops up, hey, do you want to add this experience? With the price being as affordable as it was for $5, a majority of our guests said yes. And then it was just a 5-minute escape room. They went in, they were handcuffed to the wall, Saw style. They had to reach their hand into certain areas to find keys in the room. One of them being a garbage disposal they had to reach their hand down into with sound effects and everything. So that was a lot of fun. And then they had to make their way out. We had about a 40% success rate. So that means in all actuality, 60% of our guests would have died if it was a real experience.
Good to know.
So, yeah.
Cool. Ed, how was your season, just overall?
Man, it's a long story. I'll try and make it short. What a season. When I went down to Texas 5 years ago for Dark Hour, that was probably one of my busiest Octobers. But this one beats that. It's just been working with Wicked Amusements. We do escape room stuff, whatever, and we're getting out of that for a new secret project, probably about a year out. So we're busy with that, and I was working in Salem because my buddy Skip, who runs Wicked Amusements, has a haunt out there. Buddy Eric at Gallows Hill Theater and Lost Museum in Salem. I automated his entire show. I was there till 4 a.m. some nights. So he's got actors during October, and it's an automated show during. So we did huge illusions with holograms and all kinds of stuff, doors and open, close, all that stuff. And so that was amazing. And then I was up at Fright Kingdom. For the actual haunt season, got them all set up, and they were involved in actually most people in New England that are in the haunt industry, one way or another, were involved with this new Adam Sandler Halloween movie he was doing up here, and that'll be out next October. So they used about probably 60% of the props and 80% of the animations from Fright Kingdom for that movie. So they got it finished filming pretty late. And they did a lot of filming in Salem and stuff, and then we had to get all the stuff reinstalled right before they opened. So that was just nuts, including the opening staircase gag that I do. So I mean, it was a huge project. Got that done. I got to sing on stage as Buddy Blood there during the second half of the season. Things got a little more nailed down, but it was a great season. So I'm bouncing back and forth between Salem and Nashville, New Hampshire, and doing stuff. I did some voiceovers for Terror in the Corn in Oklahoma. I was just all over the place. So and right now I'm live at the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California. Helping a friend of mine with an escape room they're putting in here. So been a pretty busy year.
Damn. And you're still with Dark Hour or no?
No. I'm out of there for almost 2 years now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, last year I was up here working with Wicked Amusements. We were so knee deep in the escape room stuff because we were doing that full time still. It was just, we're flying all over the country. We're putting them in everywhere and incredibly detailed. And there's always, things that pop up, whatever. So I didn't get much haunting in last year, but this year made up for it. So
cool. Did you get any screen time on that Adam Sandler thing? Did you get to play an extra or anything like that?
Actually, you know what? I was offered that, and probably could have had Buddy Blood on there. But to be honest, I was so busy with the attractions in Salem and running around, I just didn't have the time. And so shame on me, but I just didn't have the time.
Revenant, what'd you end up doing this season?
Well, my season was actually kind of a wash. I got sick early in the week on Halloween week, and while there was some kind of stomach bug that was going around the area at that time, and a lot of people were getting hit by it, and it was short-lived, but it was pretty savage, and I was pretty drained. And so when Halloween came around, I was like, well, they're doing the haunt this year. that home haunt that I always play at. And I feel good enough to be able to work it, but I knew that I would not be able to go to work the next day if I did, because I just didn't have any reserves. So I told them, I'm sorry, I can't do it this year. And they said, well, come down anyway, come through the haunt and see it, and have some chili and a couple beers with us, and because we'd like to see it, because I only see them once a year anyway. So I went to the haunt, and they did surprisingly well. They had gotten a really late start this year, and they hadn't even come up with a theme until like 3 months before, which is unheard of for those people. They've usually got, they at least know what the theme's going to be a year in advance. But they managed to do the last minute scramble, and they got it going. They did a zombie haunt for the first time, and they had it set up to where it was supposed to be like a CDC facility, and there was an outbreak of like a zombie virus or something like that, and you had to make your way through the CDC building and escape from it. And it did a pretty good job. I mean, it was for being such late starters and everything. They really pulled it off well. I was impressed. But this is a family that's been home haunting for just years and years and years. So they're pretty resourceful, and they have all their building materials and stuff stored away there. So. It's kind of impressive. Now, next year is going to be the big one, because it is the last haunt. And I usually roll my eyes, because their ending the home haunt is the same as us ending this show. It just happens very, very frequently. And then there's a pause, and then they come back.
One of these days, it's really going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I got a feeling that this is going to be the end for it, just because with this couple, the husband's health is not very good. Things are getting worse, and he's just doesn't have the physical capacity to do the construction work and stuff again. So they're probably just gonna
it's gonna be Saturday too, so it's a good kind of big blowout, wrap it up and be done.
Yeah, gonna pull out all the stops, and this time I'm gonna make an extra effort to come there ahead of time, to help with the build and the designs and everything like that. I want to be able to outfit that thing with the best sound they've ever had,
Cool.
help with the lighting, and we're going to pull out all the stops.
I didn't do the walkthrough this year. I was kind of back and forth about whether I was going to do it, not do it, as I've been having some bullshit with the neighbors. Like, I've always had this problem with this guy Bob next door, but I just kind of ignore him, and he hasn't really bothered me over the last couple of years. But last year I had about 1,000 something people here. So for a neighborhood, that's a lot of people, and there was almost a fight. Something happened out there on the street, not really too sure. I do remember it in being like, holy shit, what's going on? You get that feeling in your gut like something bad is about to happen right now, like some shit's going down. Luckily, no fight broke out, nothing happened. But, that was, 2 years ago. So a year rolls by, and it's about September, and I'm just starting to get in the mode of, get into the season. I've already been building and working on a couple of things, and I was wishy-washy about doing the walkthrough, but after I did an interview with that guy, Chris Burkett, I was all fired up, and I'm like, yeah, we're going to do it. And the next, swear to God, I planned out the whole map of the maze and what I was going to do. The next day, this guy shows up at my work, and he's like, I think we need to have a talk. Now, why you would come to my work to ask me to do that when I live across the street from the guy, it didn't really make sense. Yeah, guys are just a friggin' weird, especially after the conversation that I had with him, when I did stop by his house after work. The guy was all like this and that, people were, knocked down the little fence. I don't want to get into it because I think I covered this on some other episodes, maybe the Halloween episode of the show. But regardless,
it was the last one.
I just said, hey, you know what? I'm not going to do it. Forget it. I put some signs up saying no walkthrough this year, but that wasn't really so I was like, okay with that. I'm like, all right, you know what? Fine. I lost a bunch of helpers. I was really at a disadvantage, and I didn't have the energy to do all that work by myself and hunt around and try to find helpers and scare actors and whatnot. So I was like, no problem. Then, when we got about 10 days out to Halloween and I checked the 10-day forecast, and it was going to piss rain. Now, I already covered this with the Shocktail segment with Johnny, but on the East Coast or the Northeast, we were supposed to get completely washed out. Halloween night was going to be a complete shit show. So, and I was also kind of okay with that. I was like, you know what? We haven't had rain in 10 years. We had a good run. I guess we were due. It is what it is. So I was just trying to keep track of the weather situation, and I kept checking in each day to figure out what can I do, if anything. And I pretty much decided that I was going to build a PVC frame, throw some tarps over it, sit inside, give out candy, and that was going to be it. So and I had a couple of props. I was going to set up the air cannon still and have some, maybe some other pneumatic thing I could fire on a trigger. And just, that was going to be it. Watching the weather, it was going to, even the day before Halloween, it was going to piss rain. And then 9 o'clock the next morning, on Halloween day, it says the rain is stopping at 11 a.m. I was like, what? Holy shit. I jumped on Facebook. Holy, thank you, Great Pumpkin. Check out the forecast. And I posted a screenshot of the forecast. And everybody's like, yeah, and a whole bunch of, guys like Rob Horton and a whole bunch of other home haunters in the area were like, oh, yeah, I couldn't believe that all of a sudden the weather changed. I mean, even the same thing for JT down in PA. So everything changed, and I was like, holy shit, I can't believe this. So I dragged out some stuff. I still set up that little tarp thing in the drive, and I had planned on doing the swamp, the laser swamp, and I was going to try to do it on, covered in this, I was kind of trying to make it look like a swampy tank almost or something, and I was going to set up a whole barricade, but you could see in and you could see the swamp, and I had even made I bought a really cool mask. It was called a spawn mask. It was like a fish, kind of a cross between a barracuda head and a creature from the Black Lagoon, and I mounted it on a pneumatic cylinder so it was going to pop up out of the fog randomly and then go back down. And I had a little demon dog that I built a whole little doghouse for, that he was going to pop out. And I had that, so I kind of threw that all together. But because it was pissing the night before on us, I couldn't set anything up in advance. So everything I had to throw out was Halloween day. I couldn't really troubleshoot. I was trying on the fly, and the dog really kind of wasn't working. There was something wrong with the solenoid, and I just couldn't get it figured out or fixed in time. It worked. I got it to work for about a half hour, but once we got into the trick-or-treaters were showing up, it just stopped working, and I would hit the trigger, and all it was, you could hear the sound effect of the dog growling. He wasn't popping out of the doghouse. And once again, my attitude was just great. I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. Whatever. And the air cannon was working great. I had another prop that was set up over near the fence line. It was just a pop-up. It was a cockroach, and it was a spitter, so it would spray water. And I just had it set to go off every 45 seconds, and it was getting great startles because people were staring at the edge of the fence, looking into the yard, checking everything out, and then the thing would just pop up and scare the shit out of everybody. And that worked beautiful all night long. The air cannon worked great. The dog really didn't work. The laser swamp, for some reason, it just wasn't working. There was too much wind. It was kind of windy, and there was too much wind getting into. Because all I did is I had the PVC walls, and I had some vinyl tarps around it to close it. but there was wind was getting in and it wasn't working well, and the stupid pop-up was not. Like, there was a problem with the air pressure. And I couldn't figure it out on the fly. Once again, it was another thing. It was like, all right, fuck it. Luckily, I had I had the laser vortex standing by, so I stuck that in, and I had 2 foggers in there. And the laser vortex worked fine all night, but the swamp didn't seem to work well. And so I have, between the dog that didn't work and the laser swamp that didn't work, those are going to be 2 brand new things for next year, like when I'll get those figured out in time. But it's hard, like, once again, it's not being a home haunter. It's so difficult because I have no time. If something doesn't, if I troubleshoot it and I have everything working right, and it's working right all the way every time I test it through October, but the night I put it out, when I stick it out on Halloween, and if it doesn't work, I'm trying to fix it on the fly, and I'm by myself, and I usually don't have time to square it away. So, anyway, regardless of that, got great startles, just handing out. I was just sitting there dressed up in my scarecrow costume. I was giving out candy. I would lure people into the shelter just by holding the candy out. And when they would come in, all I was doing is just like sitting up out of my chair, and that quick motion was getting great startles. And so I got some great effects, and I got to see all the kids. I got to see trick-or-treaters this year. I haven't really seen little kids, under 12 years old in a decade, because I've always been hiding in the back, popping out on people. And this was a great year that I actually got to see all these little kids come out. Now, I wasn't really startling the little ones. I was giving them the candy. And then if they came in and they were like 10, 12, 14, those kids I was like jumping up at and getting some good startles. And it just was, overall, it was great, because I basically sat on my ass the whole night. I didn't have to run around. I wasn't hiding in the back. I got to see all the trick-or-treaters. We did about half the numbers because I had the sign out all month saying we weren't doing a walkthrough. So a lot of the teens and the older teens that were showing up over the years just didn't show up. So I really was just getting trick-or-treaters. And awesome. Some people that would come by who didn't know, like they just knew to show up every year, and they were coming. Some of them were a little depressed. They were like, oh, you're not doing the walkthrough? And I'm like, nope. Sorry, not this year. And because I didn't do it this year, now all of a sudden all these neighbors start coming out of the woodwork going, hey, come on, you're going to do it next year, right? Well, I don't have any helpers. I can't do this all by myself. I got problems with the neighbor across the street now and Bob. So I got 2 neighbors ganging up on me. They're like, we'll get the street closed. We'll get a party permit. We'll shut the street down. I go, well, that's step 1. Next thing is I'm going to need like 4 or 5 people who can show up here, help me set everything up, help me tear everything down, and I'm going to need like 2 or 3 people to help be scare actors. If you guys can get all that done for me, we'll talk about doing it next year. And so they're all like, oh, of course, everybody's, I'll definitely do that. I'll talk to you in the summer. I go, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
You're going to have a lot of enthusiasm a couple of days after Halloween. Let's see what it's like 6 months from now.
Exactly. That's what I even told them that. I go, I understand you're all motivated right now. Talk to me in August. Talk to me in September.
I've heard the Bob stories for years.
Yeah.
What's the distance from his house to yours?
Oh, he butts my property. He's right next door.
So what you're saying is we could do some really awesome projection mapping on his house.
Probably.
I don't see any legal consequences to that. I mean, you're not decorating his house; you're shining light on it.
Yeah. He doesn't give out candy. He hasn't in years. Yeah, he refuses to give out candy.
Just make it part of the display.
Dude, he needs to get egged. Trick or treat is not just a saying; it's a verbal contract. If he doesn't treat, he gets tricked. Damn it! What is wrong with these kids nowadays? Seriously, we would have egged the shit out of somebody's house if they were like a curmudgeon like him back in the day, back in like the 70s and 80s. But like I say, we don't even make eye contact anymore. Like he just shuts the hell up and leaves me alone. I leave him alone. I'm not violating the town policies because I'm not doing I wasn't doing a walkthrough for years. I was doing like a walk around. I would build a big box in the middle and I would kind of have it tarped off so people would have to like walk down around it, like almost like an alley going around the back and down the side. And I would be inside with a few people and we'd be popping out from inside out instead of luring them in and scaring them from the outside in. You know what I mean? Like, so I got by the loophole with the town and they really couldn't do anything. But what to say, the neighbor across the street actually even threatened that he was going to go to the town if I tried to do it again this year. So I was like, you know what? I just don't need the headache. I don't need the BS. And you know what? I had such a great year this year, even though, you know, if you asked me last year, I would have said, oh, it's going to suck. But by doing that, like seeing all the trick-or-treaters, I was getting great startles. I didn't have to do all the extra work. I still had an amazing Halloween night. And I woke up the next day and I wasn't blown out. You know, I wasn't like dragging myself to work. I, got up. I felt great. I was rested, relaxed. It was a good season, man. I had no complaints, really, all around. Even with a couple of problems, with the props. It's like, Jeff, with you and the corn stuff. Like you just figured another way around it and didn't let it kind of phase you too much. Like, yeah, it kind of sucks, but we'll go to plan B and we'll make it work.
As far as having trouble with the props, okay, like you mentioned the dog, and you said, well, the dog didn't work. Well, it didn't work to the extent that you wanted to, but it still worked in a sense. You had the doghouse there, and you said the soundtrack was working, and so there was all the growling and the snarling and everything from the dog. People didn't necessarily have to know that the dog was supposed to pop out. So it just went from being a scare prop to being an atmosphere prop.
Yeah, I mean, I did get some reaction from people where they would like turn around and look at it and like with a really scared look on their face. They didn't make them jump, but they were just like, "What the hell is that?"
Exactly. I mean, it set atmosphere and helped put that feeling of apprehension in the air because they're wondering if something's going to come out or not. So yeah, it worked. It didn't work all the way, but only you knew that.
Yeah, and the laser swamp thing wasn't that big of a deal. I kind of had a feeling without being able to troubleshoot, like test it out, make sure it was working right. I wasn't really sure, so that's why I had the laser the laser vortex ready to go just in case. So it was basically like, all right, that's really not working. Plug the other thing in, and that's it. It was like just unplug one thing, plug the other one in, and once again, that the laser vortex, every year people just stare at it like they just smoked a big fat one, and they just stare like, wow, that's so cool, man. People are mesmerized by that stupid effect every year. I've been running it for like 10 years now, and I still get great reaction from it, so I don't know.
As far as that laser swamp one on a hayride like that, the laser vortex, we did one the size of the hayride that the hayride went into. And that you're right. I had some of the coolest effects on that hayride, but the only thing people came off talking about was my laser vortex. People love that effect.
It's like,
and it's a relatively cheap effect to make too. It's a great one, definitely.
It's so easy. It's so simple. Now I've had one for years, and I still was even impressed when I went to Haunted Overloaded a couple of years ago. And basically, when you walk, I think the opening, when you finally get through the queue line and enter into the actual grounds, into the forest there. Well, you're kind of in the forest anyway through the queue line, but they had like the big skull made out of wood, and the laser vortex was coming out of it, and you had to enter through that to kind of actually go into the haunt. But just because it was so much bigger, it was a lot more impressive than my smaller one that I use because I don't have as much room. But what are some other effects? I guess I'll start off with you, Jeff. Any other cool high-tech, like newer high-tech effects that you used this year that went over real well?
You know, every year out there, I try to do some really nice new effects. I try to do some really good motion sensor stuff. It's always going back to the old school stuff that tends to work the best for me. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. One of the best effects that we did is after Halloween last year, we bought, I don't know if you ever saw the pictures on my Facebook page, but we bought probably about 200 foam carved pumpkins. So I had my back of my pickup truck, I had 2 loads worth of foam pumpkins in there. So we had some really good photo ops with those this year, but we had a pumpkin tunnel you had to walk through with those. And so the concept was we're going to take the old school dot room that haunts have used for years, and we're going to do that with these foam pumpkins. So you go through a tunnel that's covered in netting and camo netting and a variety of other things, a bunch of corn stalks in there, fogged out, all the lit pumpkins on the wall, and then we had the identical matching mask that was made out of one of those pumpkins as well with a ghillie suit. And that got some of my best scares I had in the entire attraction. We tried to do some really cool new coordinated lightning effects in our cemetery in the corn maze, but the best area that was there was the coffin hallway, which was just the old school, having multiple coffins on each side, having an actor come out of one of the coffins while people are looking at the skeletons in the other coffins. And so I'm always impressed when every time you try to one-up yourself with the tech stuff, you realize that all the old school stuff does just as good, if not better. And it's more reliable, too.
Yeah. Now, did you you carved out every one of those foam pumpkins, and did you have like LED light inside there in each one, or?
Exactly.
Is that, yeah?
Yep. So we hand carved pretty much, I want to say, for 2 or 3 months every weekend we were just pumpkin carving, which sounds, as a haunter, you're like, oh man, I get to carve pumpkins, that's gonna be great. After a couple weeks of it, you get real tired of carving pumpkins.
Yeah, once you get to about pumpkin 120, it starts the glow wears off.
I've been there.
Exactly. Yep. But yeah, so we carved those, and the cheapest way to do it, because the biggest issue with the corn maze is power and having to run power everywhere. So we just took the LED flicker candles that you can buy a pack of 300 of them, like the little tea lights on Amazon. I think they're $20 for like a pack of 300. And we lit them with those for that tunnel illusion, gave a really nice flicker and glow. The other way we did some of those is we took a lot of the new flame bulbs that everybody's been ranting and raving over, but they have the solar version of those. And being out in a cornfield where we're at, we get a lot of sun the majority of the day. So we were able to kind of hack those and use those as ways to light some of our scenes as well. And that was kind of a nice new addition this year.
Hey, I got a tip for you. This might not be any revelation, but this is a project I'm currently working on right now. I'm making a solar generator for my house because every winter I get 1 or 2 storms that just always takes power out for a day or two. I have a gas one, but it broke on me last year, like pulling the ripcord and the thing just snapped, and I'm like, great, I have this generator, I can't even use it. So I decided this year, after doing some research, to make a solar generator, and you use the marine deep, like, what do they call them? The deep charge
cycle batteries.
Deep cycle batteries. Yeah. And so I'm making one of those, and I was thinking, like, hey, you know what? Even if you were just charging the battery, you know, with a battery charger to use out in the field, like, you may be able to use that to power up a bunch of stuff that you just can't run lines out to. And if you buy one of those, I bought one of those big, they're almost like when you carry all the photography equipment. They have those big black cases. You know what I'm talking about? They have the foam in the inside that you can put everything in there, seal it up with silicone, and it's pretty much waterproof, and you can kind of keep everything there, and you could run a bunch of stuff off of there. Just a thought. It's just something I'm doing right now that I thought, wow, this could probably have some haunt applications to it.
That's a great
especially
idea.
when you can't run wires or electricity out to certain areas. You could just throw one of these out there. You can swap out the battery, maybe charge it out, swap out the battery. You need, what do you call them? You attach the
Converter.
Inverters, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the inverter takes from AC to DC.
Oh, AC to
Right.
yeah, exactly. So
It's a converter if all it's doing is changing the voltage of it.
slapping it together, I'm going off an Instructables how to. So, but anyway,
Suggestion: if you're going to be making something that you would want to use, like say out in the cornfields or something like that, for durability reasons, instead of going with the deep cycle marine battery, look into using golf cart batteries. Those are only 6-volt instead of 12, so you need to use them in pairs. But the thing is, the golf cart batteries are made to be more rugged because golf carts, get jostled around so much and everything, as opposed to boats. So you use those batteries. They're heavier. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're a lot more durable if you're going to be moving stuff around.
cool.
No, that's fantastic. That's what I always have appreciated about just this show in general, or even the community, is just the ability to sit there and find people who can think a little bit differently than you do and be able to just kind of create from there. So thank you guys for all that. That's fantastic.
Woo!
You'll owe me. No, I'm okay.
Yeah, are you actually coming this year to Transform? Is that do I actually get to buy you a beer?
We'll see. I was just talking to JT about this. I'm planning a trip to Utah. I'm doing the same type of trip I just did to Arizona, where I'm flying out to probably Salt Lake and renting a Harley and just cruising on, hitting all the Zion arches. Going to Moab and go to where else? Just all like the state parks around Utah. So I'm doing that in April. I have to do it in early April because of my business. It's like my window of opportunity for vacation closes. I have to go. I can't go earlier than that because the weather is not going to be suitable to riding around on a motorcycle. So they actually, in Salt Lake, they don't even rent out of the Eagle Rider dealer. They don't even rent until April because they already know the conditions aren't going to be suitable to ride. So I'm planning on that, and depending on what that trip falls on, that determines whether I can get to Transworld or not. So it's not a definite hard no, but it's questionable at this point.
We shall see.
Yeah. Anyway, Ed.
For every opening evening, I was up at Fright Kingdom in Nashua, New Hampshire. So that was pretty cool. There was only 2 nights I missed because of a prior engagement. I had to officiate a wedding, so I did that too. And then my brother got married early on, so it was a little pretty crazy. But so I married 2 people. That was cool. But we had
Reverend Ed.
Yeah. Actually, it was pretty good. But actually, they were old Spooky World employees, so that was kind of funny.
Nice.
But nice kids. But so we were super busy. I did all kinds of cool techie stuff. LED lighting, all the things you do, and then. One of the things that was cool this year that we did, like say at Fright Kingdom, is I think they've got something like ridiculous, like 93 animations or something. And as I said, we had to get them all going again because we used a lot of them for the movie. So I was able to upgrade some of them as we went. And so some of the timing we were able to incorporate, which again, nothing new, but as guests go through, you have one thing, another thing, another thing. Well, when it gets really busy, obviously, as we all know, you get like that conga line thing. So I just timed some of the things to go off like a cascading event, so they would kind of almost like follow the guest if they went through a normal pace, and if they didn't, then that's okay because you're still getting them like in this wave of animations and effects that are going by. So no matter where you are in a group or in the attraction, you're going to get to see it all. So that was pretty cool. It was the first time did that kind of thing. And the stuff in Salem, my buddy Skip's place, Chamber of Terror, it's the scariest attraction in town. So we did some cool little things in there. It's all those buildings are historical, so they're very, very tiny. So it's like the scariest 7 minutes in Salem, but very, very cool. Made some special lanterns for them. So yeah, you can turn them off LED. We got the concept of those for doing some escape room stuff. We'd make these UV lanterns so you can do like UV clue content with the lanterns. So that was pretty cool. But all kinds of amazing stuff. My stage show, I automated that whole thing with some boo boxes. So all kinds of fun techie stuff, again, that we've been doing for a while, but I think I integrated it more this year than ever before.
Well, what you mentioned the stage show, so explain a little bit about the stage show.
Well, one of the characters that I do is Buddy Blood, Lounge Singing Vampire. So I've got some like loungy songs that I've rewritten. For example, I may have mentioned this in a couple of other episodes, but he does a version of instead of "Ain't That a Kick in the Head," it's "Ain't That a Bite in the Neck," and it starts out, "How lucky can a vampire be? I bit her and she bit me." So the whole funny thing, and you got the whole music behind it. I'm in like a blue, very loungy tuxedo, rhinestone Buddy Blood on the back and lights on the lapels, and so do a different version of Witchcraft from Frank Sinatra and some fun stuff. So it's pretty well received actually, and I have a lot of fun with it. But I wasn't able to do it till halfway through the season when everything was working. But
now the haunts in Salem, are they year round?
Most of them are not. The haunts are not. But my buddy James Lurcio has his museum. Which is the Monster Museum down there. It's Count Orlok's, and that's open year round. And my other friend Eric, who I automated his show for the Gallows Hill Museum, they do a whole Christmas Carol experience, and you go on the trolley and you go to 4 different points in town, and 2 of the points are in his place, the basement and up top, like Fezziwig's house, and they pull people in, and they assign them some roles, and you kind of have some fun. You have some wine, whatever, and now he's doing a Grinch experience. So I mean, his thing is probably the most year-round thing up there, besides Count Orlok's, and which is really cool. The
most high-tech effect, or I'd say most high-tech effect that you ran this year. What was it?
It's kind of a combination. There's a lot of that stuff that I've incorporated over the years up at Fright Kingdom in Nashville, New Hampshire. At Eric's place, I did a bunch of stuff, and also Fright Kingdom, they do a couple of off-season shows. They do a zombie prom. They're doing when I get back, I gotta do some Christmas songs for their Christmas event they do, which is haunted, and they do a Valentine's one too. So they're pretty year round too. But as far as the high tech stuff goes, probably the most high tech thing would be the Gallows Hill Museum that I automated their entire show. So I slaved 2 Boo Box 16s and used pretty much every effect you could use on the Boo Box. They've got windows that open up, a door opens up, a witch pops out. I mean, they trigger fog, they trigger lights, all the sound is on that. Did like a step effect with 2 Boo tunes linked together where the speakers are in the audience and it sounds like a step is coming out into the audience. Bats come down from the ceiling and go back up, all kinds of amazing stuff. It took me a couple of months, at night usually, and weekends. So, but it's pretty impressive, and it's a lot of fun. It's a good show, and not to mention the hologram they want to do, because they wanted to have no actors during the summer. So that thing is a piece of plexi. He got, I think it was ridiculous. He got a good deal on it, but it was pretty pricey. It's 10 foot by 6 foot, and because it has to be leaning out towards the audience to get that effect, and pretty cool. We projected it onto a ramp in front of it, so you've got these Puritan people kind of telling the story of some of the stuff. Almost everything in Salem has to do with the witch trials, but his show has some of that in it too. But it's more of the history of the area as well, so that's pretty cool.
Talking about all this high tech stuff and the automation that the haunts are using, are they still making good use of live actors in the haunt itself, or are they just kind of relegating them to the queue line and that?
Personally, I think most animations are great for timing, keeping the timing steady, triggers and distraction scares, but really there's only in my opinion, there's only a handful really of animations that are scary. And one is the silly thing, I even forget who made it, but it's like a medieval knight that kind of stands up and he leans forward and his arms reach out and he goes right back. And that motion looks like an actor reaching out and they go right back. And that's a good scary animation. A lot of the other ones are amazing, and even some of the ones I made from scratch. I had a werewolf I made at Dark Hour, rips a guy in half, is 8 foot tall, rips a guy in half, leans in the gap, shakes his head around, water comes out of the guts, and he puts them back together, and you can't see the seam. Awesome, and it's a showstopper, but it's not necessarily scary except for the first pop, but it does set all the actors up for the amazing scares that come after. So, in my opinion, a good animation is one that is in conjunction with an actor or a distraction for an actor to get the actual scare, and in that way you get a really good texture of a show. The animation hopefully is always going to be doing the exact same thing, so it's easy to orchestrate a level of scare, because I think it's like telling a story. So if you do all level 10s, they become level 5, 2.
Well, I'm just happy to hear that, because I know that there's a tendency sometimes for people who run an attraction like that that consider how much easier it is to deal with animatronics than it is with people, and they just want to go all with automation and everything like that, and you end up with something that really doesn't have a vibrancy or a life to it.
Yeah, they're kind of cold, and it's a cool looky-loo, but you may get a startle, but it doesn't really have, like you said, it doesn't really have a soul. I've had innumerable clients all over the country ask me to make them an animatronic haunted house for that reason, because actors are people, and people can be unreliable, and things happen, and that's how life works. But in animations, they're predictably how they break. And I get it. But for your show to have a soul, you kind of need people. You need monsters to bring it to life. So even if it's just one guy running around, doing different scares, that you don't expect, and you get that interaction. Anytime you can, again, I don't mean to go on about it, but anytime you can pick out a person in a group or a group in general, and you hear a thing they say or something and make it a personal experience, that's something an animatronic will never be able to do, at least not in this decade. So that to me is probably the most important aspect of that kind of haunt.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I've taken my daughter to a number of different haunts. And through the queue line or somewhere, I don't even remember where they really pick up her name, but she is super jittery, and they know she's an easy scare. She's a good target, right?
Right.
And I've gone through a bunch of different haunts, and people are always like, Mackenzie, and they're jumping out, and they're going after my daughter, and she's freaking out, and she's like, how do they know my name? Now, they probably picked it up from me saying, hey, Mackenzie, come here, or whatever, and right. It's funny, but the actors play off of that, and once again, you get that more of you get that personal experience you couldn't get with an animatronic, but just funny, because good actors also know how to go after that person, because they know that they're going to freak out. And
as far as knowing the name, listening for the name, that's exactly what's happening, because as I spend most of my time in the queue line, those of us who do the queue lines and everything like that, that's one of the things that we're listening for, is to hear somebody call somebody and keep an eye out so that you can pick up somebody's names. And then you just go to one of the intermediary people that's between the inside of the haunt and the outside, and you drop that name and you point out who it is, so that the people inside the haunt can set them up. Even if they're back in the shadows whispering, if somebody starts hearing their name being whispered by 3 or 4 different voices coming from different directions, that'll creep them out pretty good.
Yeah. Now, Jeff, the dead zone is all outside, right? That's the...
Yes.
Yep. So you have to pretty much depend on all actors, or you're probably more what? Are you more 90% actor versus animatronic, or...
Exactly. So dead zone is literally nothing but actor. What we're trying to develop a little bit further is trying to bring a lot of the qualities of the indoor haunts to our attraction. So we're trying to do a little bit more walkthrough aspects. One of the things that we're planning on expanding into next year is the boo buttons, to where we, instead of the boo buttons to where you would normally hit them to have a sound effect, a light go off to then accompany your scare. For us, being the fact that it's all outdoors, we're looking at doing it more with the motion sensor and then the actor being able to also play into that as well. So ours is definitely all actor driven, to say the least.
Yeah. You know what I used? I picked it up last year and it works great, and it saves my voice. The next day I can actually speak. As I use one of those little micro screen boxes, I think I picked it up from Fright Props. You get a little fanny pack that you can get a battery. You can think you could use AA's, but it's about 40 AA batteries for the pack. Or you can buy the little. It's like a little mini car battery, and you just have to charge it up with the little battery tender, which it comes with. And you hook that up to it. You load a MP3 or multiple MP3s in it. Connect a trigger to it. What I did is I have the wire. I made a little necklace so it hangs right under my throat. Connect the wire to just a push button trigger. Duct tape that to my. So the trigger just hangs right down by my palm, so it's easy for me to just grab and fire. And every time you fire it, it's if you have a monster growl or even a voiceover or whatever, every time you hit it, you go like rah, come. So I'm not, and it sounds realistic. It's not me trying to go rah every freaking every 2 seconds. I can hit the button. It's very loud. It gets great reaction because people know that it's not a person doing it. Like, I think I had a bunch of Poison prop, effects loaded in there, and I was hitting it, it was just like this screaming or growling coming out of it. Gets great reaction.
We've used those out there before. Unfortunately, the cold weather that we get has fried the electronics on them in the past out there. Yeah. And that's also the joys of that property, is that property is a partnership. So it's the Botanic Gardens and ourselves operating that together. So ultimately, it has to be the gardens who decides to do the closure for the evening. So when that happens, sometimes we'll get those cold weather nights, and they'll see that there's still people lined up, so they'll keep it open out there. So I definitely feel for my staff who get to deal with that. But with that being said, I still just can't beat my fog effects out there, because essentially your cold weather you run into is the same thing as a fog chiller. So yep. I have a stadium fogger we use out there, and I can literally fog out a 7-acre corn maze with that on a cold night, to the point of where you can't see more than a couple feet in front of you. And That is just the greatest thing to be able to do, is be able to get up in our watch tower that we have, look down into the maze and be like, cool, we did it. we fogged out the entire maze in about 30 minutes. That's fantastic. So as many cool effects as I could throw at that property, I would say that's probably my least technologically advanced property over there. Our escape rooms and Frightmare definitely have a lot more unique effects to them than Dead Zone does.
What are some of your best characters that you have out there?
Yeah, so out there, the concept is we really built off the Children of the Corn concept, to be honest. In a lot of ways, it is about a cult who's sacrificing to the corn so that the corn grows better. So it definitely is an adaptation of Children of the Corn in quite a few ways. But with that being said, our corn god is the Crow, with a K. And the Crow's followers are all of these robed individuals with plague doctor style mask. And so what we've done is all of our upper level management team, we have called them high priest or high priestess. And what they do is they walk around in those robes with those plague doctor masks. They keep an eye on all my actors. They make sure everybody's safe out there. They check in with everybody. They take water to everybody. They check on the effects, refill foggers, but it also gives them the ability to be interacting in the maze. And so for me, the benefit is not only do I have a upper level management team who can keep an eye on everything, but that also gives me 4 additional high quality actors in that maze who are going to follow people, are going to listen to names, pass it on to other actors, a lot of those aspects like that. And those tend to be the favorite characters in the maze. People love seeing our high priest, because all of our high priests, they've done their own stuff. So we have lots and lots of bones in our attraction. I have a bone dealer. I call up every year and I say, hey, what do you got for me? And I normally get like 40 cattle skulls and a couple rib cages, whatever he's got laying around, we get. And so I turn those over to my staff and I say, okay, what can we build with these? And we get some really cool, macabre scarecrows and a variety of things. But the leftover stuff, like some of the smaller bones, I let my upper level staff build into their costumes. So they all have their own custom bone necklaces they're wearing, and they'll have all sorts of different unique aspects to their costumes. And people love that because you can tell it's real when they're right there in your face and they're kind of clanking on their necklace as they're bending over in front of you. It's very apparent that it's not plastic, and that's really cool. We also allow our actors who are in our photo ops out front to use real tools for their photos as well. So if you're taking a photo with a guest out front, that's a real site that's being used, or that's a real hay hook that's being used. So it's a controlled environment. We feel it's a safe area to be able to do that, but it really gives that extra emphasis before you go in that this is a true farm property, so that once you enter into the field and we're using the rubber and the fake and the plastic stuff inside there, hopefully people have kind of lost sight of that blurred line of reality at that point.
Now, Ed, are you primarily over the last couple of years have been doing work with Fright Kingdom? Is that for your major haunt that you've been working with?
Yeah, well, I helped them do their original designs almost 15 years ago. So, off and on, even when I was in Texas, I was helping them with stuff here and there. So, I love their show. It's all indoors. It's absolutely gorgeous. Detailed to the nth degree. It's definitely one of my favorites. So, I've been involved with them for a while.
I went there 2 years ago, and It was a great show. Now, I hadn't been there in over 5 or 6 years, and I thought that they really upped their game from even 5-6 years ago. It just the show was completely transformed, and I was so impressed. Their whole queue line was very different too. Like you go in, and I don't even know if I could explain it. Did you set that up?
I did.
Just explain to me how it worked, because I just thought it was very original and I had never seen it before.
Well, thanks. Basically, I went there, I forget how many years ago it was now, but went there to work 6 days and ended up staying for 6 months. But it's a daisy chain. So a couple cool things they do is when you come in, you get your ticket, you get a card, unless you're doing VIP. So you don't have to wait in a line. You can go in the Monster Midway, get a snack, sit down, watch the show, whatever. And then when you see your picture, say it's a scarecrow or a skull, whatever, then you just go right into the haunt. So it starts with the zombie haunt, and that's got, a very themed kind of queue back and forth, pretty normal. But when you come out of that, you go into the queue, which is the biggest queue for the Victorian haunt. And that one is literally designed just like a haunted house, but it's a queue line. So the way the pathway is, it's designed just like a haunt. And so it's got a little graveyard you're walking through with some mausoleums and shacks and different things. But it's got scare spots and different things you can see. So, and you also can't really see exactly what's in front of you or on the side of you because of the natural obstructions that are there. So that's pretty cool. And you got actors popping into that. There's animations. There's different things to see, including my old 1964 Caddy Hearse is in there. So all kinds of cool stuff. And then after that, they've got the the circus one, and part of that queue is actually like a striped curtain maze you may have seen in other places, and other ones there's like a cornstalk one, all different kinds of things. And the exit is actually like almost like a little mini queue to get to the exit of the place, and that's like a little mine shaft. So it's a really cool, very immersive theming in there, and a lot of time you don't realize you're waiting in line.
Yeah, that's the thing that really surprised me is when I left, I just didn't feel like I was standing around waiting to get into the haunt. I just felt like I was in it,
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't like going through like scare zones or anything. It just like I went in and you were in the midway, and I was like, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, what do we do? And I'm like, oh, okay, our ticket's got something on it that looks like a skull, and there's nothing there on the display, or there was like a crow on the display, not a skull. And I'm like,
Right.
Okay, so I guess we have to wait for that to come up. It was not really explained to me that well, or I wasn't paying attention. Me,
they're
when I
better
go
at
into a
explaining
haunt,
it
I'm
now.
constantly walking around, looking at everything and knocking on things, trying to figure out how it was made. So I'm not usually paying too much attention. But yeah, I was in there, and I kind of figured out. So we're just standing around. It was like my daughter and her friend, and then some Q actors were coming up and messing with us, and I'm kind of messing with them. And then all of a sudden, they're like, "Oh yeah, there's a skull," and okay, I guess we go in now. And we went in, and then the rest of the thing didn't feel like I was waiting for anything. It was just like a flow. Just
Yeah.
like flowed from one to another, and it was very different. I have not seen that done anywhere before.
Now, if we can only convince the DMV to adopt something like
Right? Cool. Show little blood on the highway videos while you're waiting.
You are doing some Christmas based stuff. I mean, they do like a Krampus themed haunt at Fright Kingdom, right?
Yeah, actually, next weekend, which is the middle of the month, the 15th through the whatever, that they're doing a holiday event there, and that's actually pretty cool. So they actually reskin a good chunk of the entire attraction for that show, and so different monsters, kind of like we did at Dark Hour. So different sets covering the old ones, gingerbread houses on the shacks and stuff like that. Different monsters, different soundtracks, the whole thing. So it's a major rework. They're working on that right now, and so it's pretty cool. It's a whole different atmosphere, which is fun.
I've never been to one, and I'm glad we're talking about it because I think I'm going to shoot up there and try to catch it this year.
Telling you, I think you'll really enjoy it, and it's worth it. It's very cool.
How about you, Jeff? You do anything seasonal?
We used to. I think now that it speaks to the going year-round game. Now that we do the escape room stuff, we've just not had the time because it's truly myself and my business partner Josh Holder with Frightmare that operate not only all of our attractions but then the escape rooms too. So our off-season focus has gone to our escape room brand, which we have our 2 locations here. We're hopefully going to be expanding additionally this year as well with that. We actually did do a Christmas-themed escape room last year where we did a Christmas Carol. You had to actually go through Save Scrooge by interacting with all 3 ghosts of Christmas Present, Past, and Future, and that was a lot of fun. But to be able to re-theme a room and then have to flip it back, that was a little too difficult for us. So we've kind of moved away from that at this point.
Now,
It could be a lot of work.
Yeah. How many escape rooms do you have in your location? Or you have, what, you said 2 locations?
Yeah, so we have 2 locations. We have our Denver location, which is in the basement of a 1886 mansion. We got really lucky with that one. That one is actually originally part of the Prohibition era here in Denver, to where we had tunnels running to that building. Nice. And so I fell in love with it as soon as I got to see it. It was very much my Ghostbusters scene. I was like Ray walking into the firehouse and being like, does this pole still work? I just absolutely had to have this place for our escape room. And we built our 2 first rooms there. One was a Lost Temple. One was a pirate themed one, and then our third one is a ghost hunting themed one that actually uses the history of the mansion itself. So the names, the characters, even all the ghost hunting notes you find while you're playing it, those are all information that we researched on the place and put into that room. Fast forward to our Westminster location, which is 3 times the size of our downtown location. We actually have a Wizarding World room there. We have a Mineshaft room and a Alien Autopsy room, as well as we just opened VR there, so virtual reality. And we also have a Break It room opening in January, to where you just come in and smash stuff. So that's also going to have, I believe, another 2 escape rooms at that location as well. And that one's located next door to a microbrewery that brews themed beers for our place too. So
Nice.
that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
How often do you have to change out the rooms, like, to freshen them up?
You know, I feel like we go through and we do puzzle updates more than anything, where we
Right.
we decide that we're gonna, put a new puzzle in, or somebody's broke something so many times the same way, so we decide to upgrade a puzzle to help prevent that. But so far, since we've been open, we've done upgrades. We've not done total remodels of rooms. That might be changing. One of the new things that we're speaking with some studios on right now is there's a film coming up in March that they're wanting an escape room built to promote. So we would be looking at possibly building the room at our location for it to promote that film. And then as soon as that film promotion's over, taking those puzzles, readapting them, and then building a different non-licensed room from that.
You find that the escape rooms are more profitable than a haunt?
I'm not sure if it's more profitable. I think it's less stressful. It doesn't feel like it's a race to try to get everything done for that 1 month, and then once you're done with it, trying to then adapt it again afterwards. I'm constantly able to go in there. We're closed every Monday, so I can go in there and I can do any of my repairs or anything I need to do on a Monday, versus during haunt season, I'm like constantly pulling my hair out trying to get everything done on time. And it's also nice to be able to have the variety of themes all in one location. My big thing for me with haunts, I've never been a fan of a haunt that jumps me from one room where I'm on a spaceship and then now I'm in a mansion to now I'm in, there's a clown scene. Unless you have a theme that somehow ties that all together, that's been difficult for me to ever conceptualize. With escape rooms, I love the fact that each room is its own reality. It's its own story. So you open that door and it's very Doctor Who TARDIS style. I can look in there and it's a whole different world, and you can immerse yourself in that. And so I think for building and designing, it's always been easier for me to be able to look at it that way too.
Now, Ed, you've gotten into the escape room scene over the last couple of years.
I have.
Are you finding that you're getting more work with that than you are with doing the haunts?
Well, for me, it's a lot of the same stuff. I'm doing voiceovers. I'm doing, electrical. I'm doing low voltage. I'm doing electronics. I'm doing engineering. But the big difference, as I'm sure will be mirrored, is that in haunt we tell people not to touch anything. In an escape room, they touch everything, and they literally try to break everything. Oh, this sconce didn't come off the wall. No, I had to actually make special brackets of steel to bracket it to the wall because people were trying to turn it like haunted house style and broke the wires inside, stuff like that. So that's very, very common. So it's a different type of building thing. I'm famous for building things like a brick crap house, but it's different in an escape room because in that whole atmosphere is they're literally, every knob and everything, every light could be theoretically something that they're supposed to turn. They don't know what you're supposed to turn or what you're not. So I have to make it where they can't. So that's a huge difference.
Yeah, so the design overall.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
I mean, it's just I've been really busy with that, and now we're working on some new top secret kind of project where we've gotten away from doing the escape room installs. So as far as the public is concerned, we're not doing those anymore. We're working on this thing, but we won't be able to do anything with it. I mean, to reveal it or anything for at least a year. So we're taking this year, we're developing this, do whatever. And so in between that, I'm still doing haunt stuff and all kinds of things. So
if you don't have the secret squirrel decoder ring, we can't find out what you're doing until next year.
I've been sworn to secrecy.
Is this going to be kind of the next new thing, like the escape rooms were? Do you think?
I think it's possible. Yeah, I mean it's extremely interactive and that kind of thing, and it's got a high throughput, so that'll be good.
All right, I guess we'll have to wait and find out.
You
will. See, and that's the worst part though, is you sit there and and you'll feel the same way, Chris, as being a creative type who gets to build all this wonderful stuff at the haunted houses. You sit there and you look at it through your lens of, okay, if I built this is how I would do it. And I can't tell you how many escape rooms I've gone to across the country to play, because I love traveling and going to go check out other locations. And I sit there and I'll get stumped by the stupidest puzzle, because I'm looking at it through my lens of, okay, if I were to build this puzzle, this is how it would react if I did this. And then someone else with a completely different mindset has designed it, and I can't figure out how to operate it. And I love, I guess, the uniqueness of every individual escape room location. You could have very similar puzzles, but they could be a completely different experience.
If you're in the business, you need to travel around and check other escape rooms out, because you need ideas on how to build your next room, or how to make changes or whatever. But just like going to haunts, I mean, you guys still go to other people's shows all the time, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Got to do California this year after my season, and really got to hang out with the guys over there at Dark Harbor at the Queen Mary, and that was
cool.
very, very great to very gracious to be able to actually speak with them kind of about their operations and everything, and very excited for them too, because they just opened their second location down in Orlando for Dark Horizons down there. So excited to go check that out, hopefully here next year.
Cool. Well, guys, I don't know. I guess I think we've got enough content to.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
To fill an episode on our show.
Yeah.
Well, we've been on for over an hour. So.
I know. I appreciate you guys taking some time out on a Sunday to do this with me.
Well, I got to get back to the mansion and build some stuff.
Yeah,
guys, you're going. Come on.
I got to go work on my solar generator. Get that squared away. I know. All right, guys.
Well, as always, if anyone's ever in Colorado, hit me up. Love to grab some drinks and show you around. So
have no fear, my friend. That could happen.
I will.
Fantastic.
I'm doing Utah in April, but I plan on doing Colorado within probably the following year. So you may.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, cool.
All right, I'm out. Have a good one, guys.
Later, guys.
Later.
I'm going now. Heaven help you.
Please like and follow the podcast. Stalk us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Links in the description. And help us by sharing Hauntcast with all your haunted Halloween brethren. Until next time, stay scary.